Hey, how are you?
Doing great, thank you. How's everything with you?
Oh, not bad. Computer lab today. I just happened to be running an errand over in the area and it's nice and quiet because it's basically the summer.
Yeah, great. Well, good to meet you face to face.
Yeah, same here. You got your book in the background too, so I can actually ask about your book today.
Yeah, sure. That'd be
That's a good
great.
shameless plug, as we call it at Save the Chat.
Sure.
All right, so let's get going. All right, everyone, welcome to the Autism Experience podcast. And today we're going to learn how to make our money work for us in the investment world. And I got a great guest today who's now a published author, and he sells his book on Amazon, and he's been in real estate for many years. He has a very loud voice on LinkedIn, and he owns his own business. This is Scott Harris, everyone. How are
Hey,
you today?
hey, Benjamin. I'm doing great, man. It's good to meet you face to face. We have a lot of conversation on LinkedIn. You're an avid follower of what I have to say, so I'm really grateful for all your feedback over the past year or two.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have mixed and similar opinions, whether it be politically or just about, how we see the investment world, but it's a good thing that we can share that all today.
Let's go.
So, who do you help?
Who do we help? We help people who are looking to buy and sell real estate, residential real estate here in Manhattan and in Brooklyn. And to go a little deeper, I would just say it's to help people who realize that they want to be treated like people. They don't want to be treated like a number.
And that's one of the things that not only have I become passionate about, since starting the LinkedIn journey and building my own podcast, but there's a lot of truth to that saying, because at the end of the day, what I think we all crave on some level is, like you with your company Magnetic, it's the ability to have something of our own.
Yeah, people want to have when they're looking to buy a home, when they're looking to sell and upgrade and do something, they're trying to move forward in their lives. It's bigger than one transaction, and they're looking for people to help them, people who get that there's a bigger picture, and it's more people who are willing to guide them. And so it's a real for me. I think of it as really sacred work, not just the work of oh you're just a real estate agent. It's bigger than that.
I mean, real estate agent is probably really just an entry into the field. There's multiple ways you can go with this. In your case, you eventually got to open your own business, but in many cases they work for a lot of the big traditional firms.
Sure. Yeah, I mean there are people that work at big firms, and when agents just like everybody else, they don't necessarily want to be treated like a number either. They end up there at a big shop and they call me and they're like, "Wow, I don't get any guidance." The agents are trying to they need guidance too. Everyone needs help. Everybody needs
Absolutely.
mentorship, accountability, and dare I say, some love, right?
Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to plug something because you mentioned accountability. My mentor, who is from Canada, who's also in the community, his name is Dan Freidenberg. Unfortunately, he and I couldn't continue doing the joint service together, but I actually I'm starting to do it on my own, and I have for a client of my own. I do partner accountability. So, partner accountability, I'm sure you know what this is. It's basically like what you do. You're saying people want guidance in this world, but they don't always want a coach. Sometimes they just want someone like what me and Dan were offering, which is to get together on X number of Zoom calls. So let's say in the case that Dan pitched the model to me as 1 month, you do 4 check-ins, 1 hour a week. You bring your goals for the previous week, and then me or him would sit down and ask at the onboarding, what are your goals for the cycle, which would be 4 weeks, which is the pre-call. And then Did you accomplish X, Y, and Z this week? If not, what got in your way? I'm not a therapist, so I make that clear. I made that clear to my first client. I will definitely help you find the triggers and figure out how to work with the triggers, but I'm not your therapist. So whatever, emotionally happened, let's remove from that for the purpose of the 1 hour session. And let's figure out how we can actually help you get to your goals. So for people in your industry, if they're looking for an accountability partner, they can also check me out. And it's actually not a bad fee. It's pretty affordable. If they're looking for it, it's about 200 a month,
Wow, that's
renewable.
great. Yeah, I got it.
So even if they only need it for, let's say, 1 month, 2 months, they just renew and then, kind of keep it going. So I have a client who's a very old high school friend, and it's been good to work with him now and start to get him on track toward running his own business. And then eventually getting back into things because he was a corporate business analyst.
Got it.
So the next question I would like to ask in this conversation. Real estate was your selected profession. Were you born in New York, or did you actually move here, or what we call transplant?
Yeah, so it's really if people think about it, it's where you end up in your work is not where you necessarily expect it. I mean, I know very few people who knew in high school, okay, I want to do this thing, and they're like ready to go. For me, I was in the music business. I did a lot of sales. I loved real estate and architecture, and it was very much for me like a second career at the age of 28, where I moved to New York from Boston. I was living in Boston after college. I grew up in New Orleans, so I'm definitely a New York City transplant. But I got into real estate at the encouragement of my family. They
If you don't mind me asking, did you leave Louisiana because there's not a lot of opportunities down there, from my understanding?
Oh, I went to college in the Northeast. I got into the University of Pennsylvania, which was like dream school, Ivy League school. I was like, wow, this is incredible. So I got in early. I was ready to get out of Louisiana. I felt like I was always operating in a different gear than a lot of people. And I went to college and found my people. And the Northeast really had the energy and the kind of the adrenaline, and so I moved at 18, and here I am, umpteen years later. But yeah, I lived in Boston after college, then moved to New York.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's actually a very interesting that you left the South at a very young age at 18. But I probably can also understand that, because one thing I know about the Gulf region is, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the bigger industry is really private sector. It's oil and gas. And unfortunately, not everyone aspires to want to work in oil and gas. So, like you said, when you got into your dream school, it was natural to say, let let me move where the school is and see where life takes me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more diversified than it used to be, but you either have a private business that is sort of, whatever it happens to be that works well down there with non-union kind of stuff, or it's more of a specialized, okay, I run an HVAC company, I run a plumbing supply,
Raising Canes.
I, there's that
Raising
guy
Canes.
that who got an F in entrepreneurship at LSU, the founder
Him.
of Raising Cane's.
Interesting.
He was in a
I know,
college
because
class.
I think I remember reading that story, and what I was probably laughing about is because of the fact, like, they thought he was crazy to say, I'm going to do a whole chicken fingers menu,
That's
which was
right.
probably crazy at the time. Yet if I look at him now versus back then, I'm like, he's probably laughing at the bank at every professor who told him
Oh.
he was stupid for that.
Oh yeah, the other guy in that class with him that also got an F was Shaquille O'Neal,
Yet
who
Shaquille O'Neal is now has gone on from the NBA to not to become a successful broadcaster, and he's been investing in boring businesses.
but also, he's just the most likable kind of guy, and his
Oh yeah,
business.
because he went into acting.
Yeah, well, acting, but also just he's doing commercials. He's somebody you like. He's not this. 7-foot guy that's scary. He's like this lovable panda,
Big
teddy
lovable,
bear.
yeah, exactly. Big lovable guy
Yeah.
who's
Right.
also really smart. And, one of the things I actually liked about him, it's how he's raising his kids. He basically said to his kids, while we are successful, I'm the one who went off and made the money. And if you want to own one of my businesses, I need you as my kids to get bachelor's degrees just to prove that just to prove to me that you can eventually be able to take this over because it's my legacy.
There you go.
So when you moved to Boston, what was your first job?
First job out of college, I temped. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I was going to get into teaching. I ran a youth group. I worked as a temp in a accounting office. Then I waited tables. Then I got an internship at a booking agency where I booked bands and put bands on the road. And then I was performing with bands. So I ended up booking my own band and booking other bands, producing concerts. And I started to go down that road of performance. And then pretty quickly I was on the road all the time. And I was like working from a computer and a cell phone starting in 1998, right when I got I was like the original,
So
telecommute.
remote work has actually been around since
Long
the
time,
90s.
for
We
sure.
just never heard about it until coronavirus.
Yep.
Or it actually, what's the better way to put this? Remote work was probably known about, but it was really only for executives or people like yourself who are on the road a lot.
I mean, any kind of phone sales, you could do it as long as, for me, it was just how I got things done. I did, I was home for a couple days, then I'd be back on the road. I was, doing phone calls either from my office. I worked for a booking agency, so I was at that office. I did it at home. I did it on the road. It was all phone. There was obviously no Zoom, and I wasn't going to meet these. I was working with college kids, putting bands on campuses. I was working with.
Oh, you were probably working with people who were probably about my age because I'm 40 now and the first 5 years of the generation.
Yeah, I was working with, the younger people that were in college who ran their student activities. Let me tell you, I mean, the experiences I had before real estate all helped me be better at selling real estate because these are people making discretionary decisions, meaning like they don't have to book a band, they can just not book anything. And helping them put bands on the road and touring. There's a lot of skills that really overlap with what I do every day.
The last job that I was working last year before corporate downsizing because of AI, which was I was doing medical scheduling, a lot of medical scheduling over the 4 or 5 years that I was doing it kind of actually helped me more develop into being able to host a podcast because I had to listen to people all day on the phone. And, let's just say I had to learn patience despite the fact that a lot of people were just coming on the phone, calling at innately bad times, and then complaining because they probably had an elderly parent to take care of and they wanted certain accommodations. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not always easy to listen to that stuff. But one thing I learned is, especially from my own benefit, because I will eventually have to care for my boomer mother who's going to be 70 this year. I understand now, and I believe it's a lot of Gen Xers because I think you're a Gen Xer if I'm correct, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And you guys have parents who are 80 and above.
Or getting close to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So between the kid, your generation, it's interesting because you're the first generation like boomers or the second generation who had to take care of an aging parent, but also had to help their kids post college because there was a little thing in 2008 that a lot of millennials were not thrilled with. And what seismic event am I talking about? The
Yeah.
recession
Right. Right.
or global financial crisis, which in your industry, it's been how many years since we've had a housing crash? I feel like it's been almost a whole decade and we still haven't had one.
Well, we actually in New York City, pricing is in many cases where it was a decade ago, in some cases even 2008. I just had to tell a client today they bought a co-op that is in an unloved type. It's a ground floor medical space, and she paid, let's say, between 1 million and 2 million for it, put in some real money, and then it's probably worth what she paid for it. So after 15 or whatever it was, a long, long time, she's going to lose money. And so I think in New York it's a unique moment where it's not a recession, it's not a housing recession, but it's certainly a downturn for New York
Oh
City,
yeah.
and that there are a lot of different factors. We don't have to go into it, but it's definitely it's an interesting time. And meanwhile, in the suburbs and everywhere else, the prices are at all-time highs everywhere, for the most
Well,
part. For the most part,
especially with me, because you referred me to a friend of yours, and I've been researching multifamilies, especially, and some of the multifamily prices are high in one area, fixer upper to low in another area. Like the place I'm sitting in, Mount Vernon, seems to be from price points the most quote reasonable, but even at 500,000 to 800,000 to 900,000, it's like getting close to the millions. And there are brand new construction built houses here in Westchester which have already crossed the million barrier threshold.
sure,
And it doesn't surprise me because I was born in New York City and I've lived in this area since 1 years old. So, I even know everyone complains about this area, but their complaint in this area versus the city isn't just the price, it's the Westchester County property taxes.
for sure. That's a real concern for people.
And then it's not just that, it's gas tax, school tax, because we have the best school district in the country. And I came out of that school system, and I came out of the Catona-Lewisboro School District, which is a top 25 in the United States district itself. Great district, but the only way a family can actually live up there in my age bracket or younger especially is both parents literally have to be making 6 to 7 figures.
It's crazy.
And my best friend, who's an engineer, has a very, very, very old fixer upper single family home, and even that, I think he bought it 399K back in 2014, would probably be more like 7,000 or something today. I'd have to go look it up, but I know Zillow is unfortunately not always completely accurate.
Right? Not for sure, not accurate.
Now, for our audience purposes, do you get your for magnetic, do you get these do you work with appraisers or do you do your own appraisals?
Um, well, there are different moments when we need to value properties. At first, when we're coming in and we're talking to a seller, hey, we this is what we think your property is worth. That is a forward-looking where we think it will sell. Where should we market it? And where that's really the work that we do. We're the people on the ground getting that information. Then when it goes into contract and a bank comes to lend, at that point, then there is a professional appraisal that takes place for the bank. The buyer hires them and so on. So that's a professional appraiser. But there are also moments where, let's even today, a friend of mine, his mother has a huge apartment on Central Park South, 5,000 square feet with a 5,000 square foot terrace, and it's a part-time residence. So, the concern is what is it worth? What are the taxes going to be on it with the new tax regime that just, was voted in New York City? So we're doing what they
Oh
call
boy.
broker
Now,
opinions. We're
now
doing, we don't have to go there.
I have no opinion here. The mayor is in my age group, and I don't necessarily fully agree with everything that he's put forward myself. And this is me being nice about it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so the point is you asked about appraisals and, so
Yeah.
we dip in and we dip out. It depends on the situation about where we step in and where you actually need a licensed appraiser.
Understood, and that actually makes a ton of sense to that the bank hires their own appraisers and basically does that just to kind of cover themselves. Now, interestingly enough, you probably have to work with lenders, or you probably have a network of lenders that you send your buyers to. Am I correct?
We do work with certain mortgage bankers and mortgage brokers. it always is changing because some banks will want to get more competitive and then they want to get more active in New York. And then sometimes they're like, we have enough loans in New York, let's raise our prices and see how much we can still have. Prices meaning rates. And then they become less competitive and somebody else steps in. I mean, it's like anything else. It's like we've got enough exposure to New York City real estate and we're done. So we have to constantly monitor that. It's not like a bank just says we want all the business, we're going to go after it necessarily, right? It's an interesting, always changing kind of market.
Well, yeah, especially now, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly, I think interest rates are going down or they're going up.
Depends on the day. I mean, rates have kind of we all thought they would kind of get into the fives and stay there. They've been floating up a little bit into the sixes.
So the
I haven't
Federal
checked. I
Reserve
haven't
hasn't lowered, basically, even though he said he wanted to just yet.
By he, you mean Trump. What he wants isn't always what the Fed, he doesn't control the Fed's
No,
pricing.
he can't control the Fed because Kevin Warsh now controls the Fed, and it's what Kevin Warsh probably was told, what not told, but he was probably suggested to by Powell. You're going to have to probably do this very carefully if you're going to lower rates.
Sure. I mean, look, we all want lower rates, and we thought for sure, and so did like 25 banks that, whose reports we read in 2024 and 2025. Everybody thought rates would be lower by the end of those years, and they ultimately were not that much lower. I mean, there have been dips, but it's not any kind of consistent direction right now.
Our inflation, though, is like up and down day by day, just in terms of even food prices. And a friend of mine yesterday was telling me, well, gas prices are coming down now. I'm like, they're starting, but that's months away from those even getting back to where they were.
I confess I don't pay that close attention to gas prices because I don't, we don't drive as much in the city, and it
Yeah,
doesn't affect. It doesn't. The fact is, a lot of things are more expensive, and it's something that, if it goes up, it certainly impacts people's ability to do different things. But the stock market's also gone up quite a bit, and that we definitely feel in the sense that people feel like they have buying power, they get bonused out in New York, they go and buy property, and so on. You know.
so the type of
As
clients
by
that
the
we have,
way, as we're reading this, right, the Wall Street Journal's coming out and saying that Fed officials are signaling there's probably a rate increase. So we shall see. You know, we shall
there's
see.
rate increase. Oh yeah, there's going to be at least a few people complaining about that one on LinkedIn.
You think? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we know some of the people who, they either complain or they don't, but it is what it is. There's nothing we can do because that's an independent organization's decision.
That's right.
And it's interesting because the Federal Reserve, I watched I watch a bunch of documentaries. So I watched a documentary on YouTube one day about JP Morgan, and the whole creation of the Federal Reserve was to, at one point early on, prevent a really rich individual from having to organize and bail out the economy.
Yeah, interesting.
Because they claimed when he was at the end of his life, he was literally working like from morning to night to organize the economy. I find that a little hard to believe, and I'd really have to go back and read those historical interpretations of it. But I do know it was bad for his health at that stage of his life.
Interesting. Yeah, look, I mean, it's the bottom. We need competent people at every level of government, helping things out. And right
I
now,
think you and I would actually agree on that because I don't think everyone in government positions is exactly the most intelligent person.
yeah, I mean, or they're really intelligent, maybe just not at that one thing that they've been asked to do.
That too.
These are leaders, and I don't. We don't. Let's not get political. Let's talk real estate.
Yeah, forget political because honestly, not I could go all day with that. I couldn't. I have a limit now, especially at 40, as to how much I really want to get into that stuff myself.
There you go.
So when you were on the road doing sales, what led you to real estate at that time? And did you have to take the license exam?
Okay. Well, I was on the road booking bands, performing, and I decided that I was ready to leave Boston as my home base. So I moved to New York and continued to book bands and was working out of my apartment. And I was like, this isn't working. I need to be in front of more people. I really realized that I'm more of a people person than I even realized. That being on the road and engaging with people all the time, I was also doing the phone sales, but I didn't realize that the phone was never going to be enough until I pulled away the people side. So I moved to New York and did get my real estate license at the encouragement of my family, who said, you'd be a good real estate agent. And I was sort of at my wit's end, like what kind of business is going to work for me. I had done some other sales, wasn't loving other things, and immediately got my license, went and the beginning of 2003, and it was like just incredible. Everything I did was like, it was just so much fun. I was really good at it. Right out of the gate, it was a hustle, but it was like working with people. It was just so fantastic. And once I got from the rental side of the business, which is where I started, into the sales, that's when things really got interesting and beautiful, where I was really able to help
Was
people.
selling or leasing rentals considered hard at that time or easy or
Um,
moderate?
Look, if it were easy, a lot of people think it's easy. They get in and they're like, well, what happens? They don't know how to close a deal. So I happen to be good at it, good at helping people move forward. So I closed a ton of business in my first year doing rentals, but it by no means is it just like a cakewalk. And frankly, in some ways, it's harder than sales. It's more of a hustle than sales because sales is relationship building, and sales is dreaming big, and sales is people in relationship. And so it's like the rental side of the business was kind of like you're like on the street, it's like a street hustle. I kind of felt gross doing it after year and a half. Like, I don't want to keep doing this. I didn't like the way I sort of was as a person. So I was ready to start doing sales after not too long.
So yeah, that's when you decided I want to be an agent at this point because then I can at least, build the sale and see where and build the relationship and building the relationship builds into the sale.
Yeah, building the relationship. I mean, I've spent my whole life just helping people however I could, making introductions, listening to people. Oh, you should talk to this person, just the sort of intuitive matchmaking of whatever. I do it all the time. I sit down for coffee and someone says, "Hey, I'm looking to move to whatever, Florida, and I want to meet some people that do in this business." And I'm like, I'm a collector of amazing human beings. And everybody, I just sort of, oh, let me put you together, let me put you together, help somebody get a job, help somebody get a client. And in doing that, it just sort of I was putting like deposits. I like to say like posits in the bank of the universe, and then people come to me for me to help them in doing real estate, they're whatever they're needing, and it just grew very organically, but it all grew out of just trying to help people.
Interesting. And yes, that would be what you call a connector because what you were doing at the
Something
start
like
was
that. Yeah.
similar to connection,
Yeah.
but you're still doing a lot of networking, which is an important thing. Do you join associations?
Yes. I think it's really important to involve yourself in philanthropy, things that you care about, that you want to give to of your time, your resources. Um, find ways to help by doing things that are easy for you, but make a huge impact for the other person. Um, I, I can't it in your business, right? Like people sometimes say, well, this is so easy for me. They feel weird about getting paid a lot of money for it. But the truth is, everybody has like a special skill. You do, I do. We all have like a superpower that we should be compensated well for because we do it better than anybody else. And the more we do that, the better. And so it's like, I feel really blessed. I can connect people and kind of I just love that tingly sense. Oh, you should talk to this person. Just the brainstorming that comes from that. And it also happens after a while for me in real estate where I just have a sense this is a part of town. This is, oh yeah, that property. Like it's a constant matchmaking exercise for me, whether it's people or things.
Something I could probably do is because I have an array of things besides accountability partner that I can do. I also have a resume with, a bunch of career skills on it, and I could probably send you my resume after this, and you'd probably be willing to connect me to, different people that, within your connections. And that's something that I was just considering. And the minute I heard you say it, I'm actually impressed because you're good at it. I can get that sense.
Well, I have ideas, and they say like not every crazy idea is great, but all great ideas are crazy, you know?
No, that there's
And so
logic
like
in
I
that.
have a lot of I throw a lot of things against the wall, and but my intuition has always guided me right, and often I've been really lucky and blessed. I've been able to help a lot of people. It makes me so happy when I hear, oh, you introduced so and so and they hired so and so, right? It's like great, what a joy.
Yeah, because I can there's plenty of skills that I can easily put to use freelancing. I can host somebody, I can host and develop podcasts for people. There's an array of things I can do in addition to my service, which is accountability partners. So I'm a multi-talented person. And, it took taken over 4 years, like you said, to not just drill down, but even get to the point where I can carry conversations like this.
Yeah, that's great.
And even within the first 2 years of the podcast, I had somebody else running the Zooms, but then starting last year and the year before, I was running Zooms. Last year, I finally started uploading my videos and starting to relearn the editing. So, it's easier now with AI tools. Do you use any AI tools at Magnetic?
we we haven't when it comes to podcasts and things like that where we're not actively recording a lot of episodes right now, but we use AI across a lot of our business. So running, reviewing documents, coming back with information. I like to say it's like 80% of the business in a lot of cases. It's like the best assistant you've ever had. Write this, come back to me. I look at it. Okay, it's drafted, and I can tweak it. But it's like a huge help to expedite things. Like I have the thoughts, I just need somebody to help organize it a bit, and then it spits it back out, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't exactly land, but it gives me so much. AI is so helpful to kind of synthesize things, and then as somebody who's been in a business like real estate for 20 plus years, it allows me to use my own judgment, kind of what makes us human, that the skill set that AI can't possess, which is good judgment.
Yeah, AI will never possess that. And even I know myself, there's things I can do with AI. There's things I can't do with AI that my brain needs to do itself. So I can
Sure.
use AI for drafting documents, putting together questions for podcasts, and, even just for my client and, you know, my business model and stuff like that, which I'm getting ready to register this year, which I'm getting ready to register before the end of the year. But what it can't do is it can give me ideas of prices and what to do, but I have to make my independent decisions on my own.
Right. You've got to ultimately, it can get you so far.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be used in place of human judgment. So tell us a little bit about the pursuit of home and what gave you that idea.
Okay. Speaking about people, after 2 decades of helping people buy and sell real estate, and this is not just in terms of buying a home, but in a lot of things, people get in their own way. Okay. And what happens is when people go to buy a home, it's a really stressful, emotional process that people go through, that everybody goes through some emotional journey, but nobody talks about it. I looked around. Is there a book that talks about the emotional, psychological, spiritual journey that people take when they go to buy a home? And there was nothing there. And that's where the meat is, the juice of the search. It's not the transaction. The search is all about that emotion of falling in love with something. What works? What would you love in your next home? What does that say about you? as a person, your growth. So I realized I needed to write the book. I've been writing a blog for 15 years. It was time to put pen to paper in a way that really told the stories of what people actually go through when they go to buy a home so that I could help people that were setting out do this in a way that's more fun and more fruitful than it is otherwise. Because most people, 85% of people complain that this is a terrible process for them. Part of it is because they can't find an agent that they like. Part of it is because they have misconceptions about how the process is going to be. So there's a lot there that people need to go through. And if you can have a better experience, how much better is the house going to be at the end of the process?
Well, that can be true, and especially with apartments, because when I ended up back in 2024 being a recipient on uh, the affordable housing lottery, and I got one of the new construction homes because traditionally, how those lists actually work, unfortunately, is you're waiting for a bunch of years.
Right. Yeah. Look, I mean, I think I talk about the idea of renting versus owning. And, the people who are reading my book, I'm writing it for people that, are in a position to buy something. But I think before people are ready, I still want people to dream big. Right. So, I think I give people a lot of credit to that they've been able to save money and get that going. But at the same time, like, even if you or anybody is renting, I want to make sure they know, like, they should be, setting big goals and having dreaming big dreams for themselves.
That's one of the things that I learned even through my mother. Because there are times I get tired of renting, but I do understand that it's right now the place that I kind of have to be while I'm figuring out, my business income and my services. So, I can be content with it, but I also feel like renting is for a set period of time. And some people try to tell me that owning a home is going to be too expensive. I'm like, yeah, but it's a goal worth toward working toward, even if it doesn't, even if it doesn't happen for everybody. It's better to have a goal of something to work toward than not.
Right. I mean, people will give you a million reasons why something's not going to work. How about you just decide it's going to work and you're going to figure out how to make it work? There are a million phrases that come to mind. One is, you should aim for the stars, shoot for the stars, and if you hit a bird, so be it. But instead of aiming for a bird and hitting the ground, if you're shooting, this is like shooting arrows. There's just some people say, well, what if I fail? I aim really high and it doesn't work out. I'm going to be embarrassed because I've told people that I'm doing this. Like,
Michael Jordan missed how many shots before
right,
he became successful?
right, bottom line, it's like just take the shot. You're going to learn a lot, and I just think there's no downside to dreaming a big dream and working towards it. The worst thing that happens is you get there later, you learn a lot. Maybe that's not your path, but better dream big than just to shut it down and give up.
And
That's
that's one of
very
the
sad to me.
reasons. Last year, here's a funny story because in January, I was texting with my best friend who had just gotten married in 2023 and he had his first kid in October 2024. So he's been a homeowner since 2014. And he thought when I was complaining about not being able to own a home that I intended to buy a single. So, he tried to advise me. I don't know if that's something that's going to be realistic for you. You should just focus on renting. And in my head, I was thinking to myself, as much as I understand where your advice is, one, we're not kids anymore. In high school, we're both grown men at, consecutively 39 to 40 years old last year. So you don't get to make that decision. I make that decision. I didn't actually say it to him, but I'm thinking to myself, I think I just hit a point where you're trying to give me advice instead of actually listen to me. I have people who can give me advice, among mentors and friends. That's one thing, but you're my best friend. You're supposed to listen to me. You're not supposed to rush to giving me advice.
Yeah, look, I write about this in the book, Benjamin. Like, the idea is you need to surround yourself with people who believe in you and people that are going to support you in your dreams. And what I mean is they're just not going to shut them down. And giving unsolicited advice is like not the greatest thing for a friend to do. Sometimes you just need a friend to listen. It's not about fixing a problem. It's just about being a good listener. And I think that,
I think more people are stuck in trying to think they need to fix a problem than learning I need to listen for once in my life and I need to humble myself.
yeah, but I mean, a lot of it, like you have to, the people in your life who are your fans, who are going to support you, who want to just be there to help you win. And there's some people that are, want to see that you stay exactly the same.
You
And
mean the people who still have that image of me from high school that can't forget, me as a kid, but don't want to acknowledge me as a grown adult
yeah,
or
I mean,
somebody who's grown?
it's, it's, it's difficult. I want to acknowledge these are difficult things. If you're going through a home buying journey, I write about it. It's, right, it's in chapter 3. I think it's like you have to be very careful who you share your dreams with when they're like in early stages because people can say things and they can discourage you. And they maybe don't even mean it. Some people are a little bit more intentional being, they are trying to kind of snuff out your dreams, but a lot of people they love you, but they just don't they show it in a way that's hard, makes it hard for you. So it's, how do you create some boundaries around your home search? You got to surround yourself with people that are going to help you make it happen, not people that are going to get in the way.
Well, that's the same with podcasting, and that's the same with building a business. And that's why I've also, for my own good and mental health, I've distanced myself from people in the past. That was not something that was easy to do.
Look, I mean, the name of your podcast is the Autism Experience, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I imagine like that. I'm someone who suffers from ADHD. Like,
I have ADHD too. That's the main
I've
part of my
worked a million,
diagnosis.
I've worked a lot to create like structure around myself to, and, I know when I get distracted, I know the conditions, like it's just working with what you have and the, there's so many superpowers that you have from some of these things. It's like you actually, people don't, they don't always get it, and you've grown. We all grow through life, and it's important to that you surround yourself with people who see you for all of your best qualities and who believe in you. And when you're trying to do
It's
something new, it's scary enough already. You don't need people telling you why you can't do it.
it's like I'm pretty sure the tech CEOs, I know a lot of them are probably on the
Of
spectrum on
course.
some level.
Of
It's just no
course.
one realizes that, but they want to work for those people's companies.
Of
They want to
course.
work for Elon Musk at Tesla or SpaceX. They want to work for
Look,
Peter Thiel's Palantir.
the some of the most remarkable skills that people have who are on the spectrum is that they can just say whatever the heck they want and they don't think that it wouldn't occur to them to care what somebody else thought.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Like I have an opinion, I'm going to share it, and I'm going to get something done. I have a vision for what I want to do. It doesn't occur that I should give a hoot what you think about that. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but it's like and that in business, when you have a clear vision of what you're trying to do, that kind of attitude will serve you pretty well. Um, and I mean, it serves you in a lot of things in your home search. If you're like, hey, I was in a job, I got a big bonus. It's time for me to buy a place. Maybe some of your friends don't own a place and you feel a little bit, weird that you're about to go buy this house and worried about what people think. This is psychology. This is what happens. This is
Psychology 101, exact.
what
And
it means to
did
be
you have
human.
to take psychology courses or you just picked up on human psychology over the years in the industry?
What's hard to know, chicken or the egg kind of thing, Benjamin. Like
Chicken or the egg. Yep.
I took psych classes in college. I was a psychology minor, but I spent my whole childhood, focused on people and their feet, trying to make everybody happy, being a people pleaser. So, did I get into psychology because I was a people pleaser, or did I get into psychology because I really wanted to understand people, or I already understood people, I was trying to figure myself out? Who knows, right? But I think it definitely served me to study people on a, not just normal behavior, but abnormal behavior, and just to see the whole spectrum of behavior, what it means to be a person.
Yeah, and I can completely respect that because I enjoyed psychology and sociology back at Mercy University in Dobbs Ferry. Those were interesting courses to me. And I just had a guest, I just had a recent guest who lives in Saudi Arabia recently who hosts the Psychology Talks podcast. And when she started standing out to me in my thread on LinkedIn back in 2020, doing a live stream podcast about different psychology topics, I became interested in it because she was talking about things that not many people on LinkedIn like to address, like people like myself. Don't always necessarily feel included on LinkedIn because I'm in a different category of a W-2 worker, which is I'm the category of worker who's probably been looking for a lot of years. Either it was the resume, it was, the timing of the economy, but they don't address long-term job seekers. They just address, people in posts based on if you were recently laid off or something like that. So she starts posting about, different psychological takes and different things in the working world. And it piques my interest because I'm like, the original idea for Autism Experience podcast, which was rebranded 2 times, was basically nobody's discussing what it's like for people like me who are on the autism spectrum on here. I'm a different type of a worker. So maybe if I start posting about this, it'll eventually start something. What it eventually started was ability to come to people like you now, but where it originally started was just posts about my experience, looking for work and hoping that would eventually lead to the right people.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's it's inevitable. I mean, so many clients. I mean, I'm the way that our world works now with data and the businesses that surround data. It's inevitable that, some of the geniuses of these businesses are on the spectrum. I think there's
Peter Thiel and
so
Alex Karp.
I know the name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Palantir.
Yeah.
Alex Karp was recently quoted as saying, in the age of artificial intelligence, there will be 2 types of people who are going to succeed: those who are neurodivergent and people who are going to go into trades.
I mean, that's, I have those conversations all the time, like if you think about who are the most popular people in communities, the jocks and, the gregarious salespeople. And now it's like the wealthiest people aren't always the salespeople, they're the engineers. And so the whole of our society has migrated a little bit, onto the spectrum to some extent. Um, and I think I mean, there's a great book that's about the Israeli tech sector that talks about how there's a whole subset within the Israeli army that is just made for people on the autism spectrum. That to study that they people who have a very specific skill set, they can study data and maps, and they're able to, really do important work. Um, and you just like look across the whole of tech and business, and there's certain jobs that just require a level of focus and attention that most people don't have.
Yeah, completely. And that's when I understand where his quote is, not only resonated with me, but it made me think, okay, so maybe now there's actually a place for somebody like me in, society where what AI eventually does is along with, running a podcast, it'll allow people to finally see me differently than our traditional society that you and I grew up in, because we both grew up at different times, but traditional in the more traditional occupation sense.
Yeah, I mean it's no one cares about whether you look, you wear a suit all the time. I mean, there are a million things that like it's just it's very results oriented in a way that is um, it's not always ideal, but the way we work, the way the working world works, I think values skill sets of people
I
on
mean,
the spectrum more than it used to.
in what you do, which is real estate, I mean, you still need to present yourself reasonably well when you're
That's
meeting
true.
clients. So
Yeah.
you still do need a suit on some level,
I
but
think I think the most important skill that a real estate agent has is emotional intelligence.
yes,
You have to be a person that really understands the human elements. And so that is, a really important, you got to slow down enough to listen and understand, the kinds of communication styles that people are going to feel comfortable hearing. Um, it's a very intuitive, people-driven business, and so certain elements of the real estate industry, require a lot of EQ, right?
EQ, yep.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of the session.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make these last two questions fun. Where
Yeah.
do people find you besides LinkedIn? Do you have other social media?
Sure. So you can go on Instagram and find me at Scotty Harris, Scottie Harris. Show a lot of pretty pictures of real estate, post pictures of me and my kids, talk about just like New York life and whatever. And the other place, if they want to check out the book and get free resources for the book, they can go to pursueyourhome.com, and that's where they can find, hey, there are assessments to understand your own communication style. How do you find a real estate agent? What are all these different tools and tricks that are there, free resources for people to check out. Of course, they can check out the book and buy the book there as well. But I think those are the two fun places I think for people to find me.
The book is for sale on Amazon, correct?
Amazon, anywhere you look, anywhere you want to buy books.
Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble.
Oh, nice. I'm going to actually probably buy myself a copy of this book.
Oh, that'd be great.
So now that we've basically reached the end, I would definitely love to meet you in the city sometime. So let's stay in touch, and I'll send you my resume once this is done, and we can keep the talk going from there. All right, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you for
All
having
right,
me. Appreciate it.
you're welcome, and thank you for making the time.
You bet. Bye bye.
All right, guys. That's what we got for you. I'll see you at the next one.